Hello and welcome to the Haunted Book Club with me, Gav Cross.
And me, John Reppion.
And we meet live every 2 weeks on Substack, and then we push it out to all the places. You can get the audio versions on your Spotify's or your podcast catchers or your Apples or your YouTubes. And if you wanted to help us because you're having a nice time, we'll never ask for any money for these things, the onlines. But if you wanted to like and share and comment and rate, that would be a big help. But the biggest help you can do is come to the live and have a chat with the other book clubbers, because they're actually really nice people, aren't they, John? Don't say all those things you've been saying about them. Just pretend and say nice things.
Some of them are really nice people.
That's my favourite line when I'm doing shows, but that's not about me. Right. So tonight, what it is all about, because this is a conversation, a book club all about short, supernatural, and weird fiction. We're going to focus on the fact there. You don't need to, it's okay if you are a believer. We're focusing on the fiction. And tonight we're looking at content warning for you that live is a picture of a spider coming up. We have got Night Terrors, the ghost stories of E.F. Benson. We'll find out all about him soon. But before we go on, every week, well, the week before, we record it and we put links out so you can read it free. And we ask the people here, was Spinach by E.F. Benson a woohoo? Something that you really enjoyed for whatever reason? Or was a boo-hoo? It's not really your kind of story, or it's, it was all right. So could you type in the chat woohoo if you thought, yeah, I like this, or boo-hoo if this was not your kind of supernatural story. And if they're not your kind of supernatural stories, stick to the end, because you're going to find out how to influence us. Don't give us the full intro, John, but tell us a bit about tonight's story.
So, Spinach by E.F. Benson. It's Ludovic and Sylvia Byron are brother and sister. They're also mediums, though whether they have real powers or they're just using that as a means of making money, we can't quite tell. They have a short little holiday, which provides them with opportunity, perhaps not a welcome opportunity, but an opportunity nonetheless to prove their psychic abilities.
There we go. And what we're getting woohoos across the board.
Oh,
And
that's nice,
Barry
isn't it?
has even said best one so far.
That's lovely to hear.
Oh, no, Josie's come in with a boohoo. And that's okay, because
that's
we're not
that's a
going
valid
to have...
response.
We are not going to be able to provide you with something that you enjoy every time, but we want to know the whys as well. That's what really interests us. Now, my job is a bit of a host. Also, I read the story, but what's brilliant is I'm not as clever as I pretend to be. That's why we've got John here. John Reppion, author, writer, and all-round full of interesting thinger. I don't know if that's a phrase. And John, you're going to give us your kind of overview and insight into the story and into the writer. And then while we do that, we really want you to be part of that conversation. So either start typing or a question or a thought, and you can press go. We probably won't look until John finishes. But John, over to you.
So, Edward Frederick Benson, that's his full name. He was born in 1867. He died in 1940 at the age of 72. He was born in Wellington College in Berkshire, where his father was the headmaster. His dad later became the Archbishop of Canterbury. This keeps getting better as I keep saying these things. His dad later became the Archbishop of Canterbury. Edward's mother, Mary, who preferred to be called Minnie, later Ben, was an openly gay woman who set up home with Lucy Tate, the daughter of the previous Archbishop of Canterbury, after Edward's father died. Despite their unlikely marriage, the Bensons, who were cousins, just in case we're keeping track of the number of cousin marriages that we talk about throughout all these different episodes, it seems to be a recurring theme. Um, they had 6 children, but only 4 of them survived into adulthood. Edward's older brother, Arthur, wrote the lyrics to Elgar's Land of Hope and Glory. Robert was a Catholic priest with a sideline in horror novels with titles like The Necromancers, and his sister Maggie was an Egyptologist best known for her excavation of the precinct of Mut, a temple compound on the east bank of the Nile in 1895. So the Bensons were not what you might think of as a stereotypical Victorian Edwardian family, but everything that's sort of remarkable about them also seems quite relatable or understandable, um, sort of very real and modern in a lot of ways to me, anyway. Um, there were people who were lucky enough, and obviously they were privileged enough to have the freedom to pursue their passions, their interests, and to express themselves very openly and honestly, which is interesting when we think about the eyes and Edith Wharton and the world that she inhabited, and it's sort of it's a bit of a contrast to that. Benson himself was a gay man, though he's often described in biographical literature as intensely discreet, which is like a really weirdly Bensonish phrase. Intensely discreet when it came to his sexuality and his personal life. So I don't think we can describe him as an openly gay man in modern parlance kind of thing, but he was perhaps as openly gay as the society he moved in would allow him to be. Um, Benson's well known for his non-spooky Map and Lucia novels and short stories, which are these comedic upper class English snobs being daft, basically. All about one-upmanship and social rivalry. They're not a million miles away from P.G. Woodhouse's Jeeves and Wooster stories, sort of. I've only in the last 2 weeks listened to some audiobooks of them because although I knew of them, I wasn't familiar with them. And I am allowed to say this because it's the book club and we can all give our opinions. Didn't think they were as funny as Jeeves and Wooster, but they're more arch and more subtle. There's a lightness of touch. They're not as outright, obviously stupid and silly. It's not. There's a bit more artifice to it and a bit more. I don't want to say it's not slimes, but like I say, they're arch. They're kind of. It's a little bit. You've got to catch what's going on. It's not kind of telegraphed massively. Benson wrote something like 70 novels in his lifetime, so he was incredibly prolific. He also loved golf, cricket, and figure skating, and he wrote a number of non-fiction books about all of those, as well as on all kinds of other subjects. So, as a student in his 20s, Benson was present at M.R. James's first public reading of his own ghost story, Canon Albrecht's Scrapbook, which was at the University of Cambridge in 1893. So, that reading is regarded by a lot of people as really the beginning of the birth or the rebirth of the modern ghost story, stemming from James. So, actually, him being there is there weren't many people who were present that day. I think his big brother was as well. He went on to write many of his own ghost stories, but he preferred to call them his spook stories. So Spinach was first published in Hutchinson's magazine in 1924, which is when Benson was almost 60 years old. It was republished in the collection Spook Stories in 1928, which was the fourth of 5 ghost and horror compilations of Benson's works that were published during his lifetime. Spinach might not seem, to people who know Benson's work, it might not seem like the most obvious or even like the best example of a ghost story from his canon, if you want to call it that. There's And No Bird Sings, Negotian Perambulance, caterpillars. They're all examples of brilliant stories which follow a more conventional pattern of creepy storytelling, although they've all got very clever, strange quirks to them. But following on from the eyes, which we read and talked about last time, Spinach uses a similar trick, but sort of in reverse, where with the eyes, we think we're getting a ghost story, but we end up with something else that's using the framework of a ghost story. Spinach, we start out believing that there's no truth to the supernatural element of the story, only to be pleasantly or surprised. It subverts things, but in the opposite way that the eyes does. Thomas and Caroline Carrot have changed their, which is, immediately funny anyway, have changed their names to Ludovic and Sylvia Byron. Benson writes, they called each other by their assumed names quite naturally and had almost themselves forgotten that they had ever been other than what they were styled on their neat professional engagement cards. And that's a lovely little example of how sculpted and precise Benson's language and turn of phrase are. When we were talking about the Mask of the Red Death, I think I said Poe's, the way Poe writes, sort of makes my mouth water, and Benson's writing does a similar thing, but not identical. It's there's something like beautifully tidy and precise about the way he writes that makes me feel like there are sort of no sharp or rough edges on his sentences, as if all the corners have been kind of rounded and smoothed off, if that makes any kind of sense. It's just all so precise and neat and just lovely. Everything at the front end of Spinach leads us to believe that the Byrons are basically money hungry frauds with no psychic powers, and also that they're somehow trying to convince themselves and each other that they do have powers. Ludovic's slip up when he's talking about how spirit photography might earn them a bit of extra cash is one of the most obvious bits. But even though that seems to expose the fakery of it, when Ludovic tries to do the spirit photography, he doesn't try to fake them. He goes through, follows this procedure, and he seems to be fully expecting that it's going to work and to work by supernatural means, presumably. So that's almost our first or one of the early indicators that something might be different to how how it's originally presenting. The Byrons seem to be these ridiculous characters at the outset, but they become more real and human as the story progresses. Not because they change or that anything changes about the way the story is being told. It's because the events of the story start to frame them differently. You start to feel that they're not absurd caricatures, just weird people, for want of a better term. And knowing what we do about Benson's family, their incredibly varied interests and lifestyles, we can understand that people who might be thought of as eccentric would be very real and relatable to him, even if they were, kind of quite out there characters. So a psychic brother and sister team seems like a really weird jumping off point for a short story. But Benson, even though he treats it with there's loads of comedic potential, it's treated as if it's somehow credible, like that pairing is something you might be telling a story about without it being so sort of off the wall that nobody would accept it was even a thing. And I suppose if your real life sister is this Egyptologist digging up tombs, your brother's writing the lyrics to, a Rule Britannia knockoff and everything else that's going on, it probably doesn't seem that unlikely to you that this is a psychic brother and sister is a real thing you could kind of talk about in these terms. And I think there's empathy and acceptance in there as well as ridicule. I don't think that they're characters who are treated cruelly or who we don't like. They're quite likable despite the fact that they're not bad people, but they're not good people either. They're just people. It's mentioned a couple of times in the story that their clients are all wealthy, so there's no suggestion that they're swindling anybody out of their kind of last pennies by um, by conducting these psychic things. I don't think there is. Anyway, that's one reading of it, but they do seem to say that everybody could afford these holidays that they could definitely never afford. Of course, they could afford the holidays, but they're a bit kind of penny pinching, aren't they? But it still doesn't make them good people, even if the people that they're taking the money off have got plenty of money to be taken. So the ghostly Thomas Spinach is more morally complex than he appears at the start as well. We move from sympathy to fear to horror when we understand his predicament and the reason for it. The idea of this spirit being haunted in the afterlife by the body of a man he murdered is just so bizarre, such a cool, weird idea. The violent knocks in the cottage uh, made by his murdered uncle seem a lot more unsettling to Sylvia than her brother. And Sylvia seems much more afraid of ghosts and spirits than you might expect a genuine medium to be. So is that a suggestion that she's more of a fraud than her brother is? Is it that her powers are less developed? Or what is the difference between those two things in the story? Go on, what were you going to say?
I think she's the real deal.
You think she's the real
And
deal?
that's why she's scared, and that's why he is not scared. What does anybody else think? I think she's the real deal. I think he's the fraud, hence the framing of the story of the fraud. And then when we get the emergence of her powers, she's the real deal. She has the deeper skill set, and that's why she's scared, because she feels it more. That's my take.
No, that's an interesting idea, and that's definitely possible, isn't it? Within the yeah, definitely you could read it like that. So the final paragraph of the story says that basically in time everything returns to normal, despite everything that's happened, despite the discovery of this body. But that version of normal is in itself bizarre. Their version of normality, of reality, is bizarre. Happy spirits on the other side haven't really got anything interesting to tell the living, even though you're in communication with them. We're left wondering whether the Byrons return to like charlatanry and sort of doubting whether they ever had any genuine psychic powers, even though we've seen the evidence for ourselves in the story, which I think is really clever. The body of the murdered uncle could have been discovered without any kind of haunting taking place. In fact, they lit the fire several times while they were there, so it's really surprising that they didn't discover it.
Yeah,
Um,
so that's a well smoked cadaver.
yeah, he's
That's
a kippered.
that's like an Iberico ham style uncle.
Kippered uncle. So there's no
Kippered.
material proof that anything supernatural has taken place, except, of course, there is the photograph that shows the spirit double. But even that is just part of the ephemera of mediums and psychics. So if you showed it to a believer, they'd believe it.
Yeah.
If you showed it to a skeptic, they'd be skeptical of it. It takes us no further. So in this one little short story, which is a lot of fun, has got a lot of humour in it, I think that Benson manages to show us a version of our own world where the supernatural is or could be real, but it being real makes no material difference to anything. Life goes on just as it always did, and nothing has really changed. And that sort of makes Spinach weirdly a very realistic ghost story, because what if ghosts were real? What if ghosts are real? And it's like, oh, well, we just have to get on with everything anyway, wouldn't we? That's all any of us can really do. And I know that that ending can feel a little bit of it could be a bit of a letdown, but I feel like it rounds things off very nicely. And you're left, it's a very, as a whole, it's a very nice experience. It says a lot more than it appears to at first glance. I think it's a lot, even though it is a very silly, fun ghost story that again is using the format of the ghost story stuff to do something different and be a bit satirical and everything. I think it's quite deep, a lot deeper than kind of it would seem at first.
Thank you, John. John, and that's yeah, that's where I come from as well. I think this is really layered and really rich, just like a lot of other Benson's stories, which maybe we get a chance to talk about. So it'd be good to know what you thought of the story, or any questions you have, or any clarifications, or any confusions, or anything you'd want to challenge that John has said. I don't agree with John all the time. But that's the beautiful thing about these stories; they can come from different places. Well, we've got Rachel agrees that Sylvia is the real thing, and that's why Ludovic gets jealous. Yeah, I think Ludovic's all about the money. I think he's all about the yeah. It's really I really wondered why he bothered sticking him up there. Yeah, I did too. Other than the fact that it's like if you dig a fresh grave, I suppose that's quite difficult to hide.
Yeah,
And the suggestion may be that he's not really a balanced kind of person either, so he's not making great big logical choices. It'd be much shorter story, says Barry, if they'd found him earlier, and that is factually correct.
that is factually correct. Yes.
Yes, it seems like a lot of work. It does seem like a lot of work. It does. Strange name, spinach. Yeah, why do you think spinach and carrot are so prevalent in this story, John? What's your theory? And what's your theory, book clubbers? I've got mine, but I want to hear yours first. I also think the widow was up to something. Yes.
Yeah, that is an interesting point, isn't it? Why Mrs. Sapson?
Yeah.
What is her motivation in the whole thing? And this, I really couldn't come up with an exact reason why she's put them in this scenario.
That's why I think it's got so many complex layers. I think it's like I've only ever read one Agatha Christie. But it's like that kind of like there's a lot of red herrings in there that make you go, oh, or make you go, hmm. And whether it ties it all together, I don't think necessarily needs to. But I just do think I think the footsteps are there to back foot you, if I can mix my metaphors. Um, yeah, the widow is dodgy though. She is dodgy, but she knows something has happened. I do you think she was testing them? Because she suspected something? Do you think she wanted to use them as kind of like discovery? Or was she involved? So therefore, she was expecting them to reveal something. I don't know. It's a lot to take in.
I
Um,
think that the simplest, the most straightforward one is that obviously she knows about um, Spinach's death and being struck by lightning and all the rest of it. So she wants to see if they're going to pick up on that, and doesn't know about the body up the chimney. But not knowing about the body up the chimney is quite a big
Maybe
thing.
she was just she kind of suspected it had happened, but she needed them like a pair of dowsers, diviners, to find, So she was kind of like a once removed Columbo, one less thing. Um, Claire says, I think she may be living off credibility as mediums. Yes. And if they do well, so does she in those circles. Yes, standing. The social standing. And this is what we're getting into why I love E.F. Benson. And I come from the other direction. I've read more Benson than Woodhouse, Barbara Woodhouse. Sit. Um, I love, and that word you use is a word I adore. I love how arch he is. And I know he was deep in this world, social hierarchy, but he wrote about it all the time, and he was so hilariously scathing about it. Um,
Yeah.
I've got this edition. I love the Wordsworth editions because they are cheap and accessible. Um, the Wordsworth edition. So it's got I think it's got most of his ghost stories in, and there's a story I read in my previous my last 4 years of reading ghost stories online to no great acclaim. Is one of my favorite ones. Is a very arch and funny story called Mr. Tilly's Seance. And Mr.
Yes.
Tilly's Seance is all about a fraud medium where the society go to. and then read it. No, I'll reveal it. It's 100. It's 100 years old. So, and one of her regulars dies on the way to the séance, and so he goes, oh, right, I'm dead. Well, I might as well go anyway, and goes and gives the medium the like fright of her life because she can actually see him. And he's like, well, what have you been doing for the rest of the time? So it's a real kind of like comedic arch takedown of this whole explosion of the spiritualism that was so prevalent around this whole middle class society.
Yeah.
I thoroughly recommend it. Very funny. I wonder whether the widow also knows something is present in the house. Um, thinks that Ludovic is a bit dodge. And maybe that, yeah, I think Sylvia is the psychic one. Now that is reading deep. No, I think I'm with you, Rachel. I agree with all of those things. As I say, I think that Sylvia is the one. Ludovic is like on 10%, and Sylvia is just starting to go full wallop. We know that the outcome of this for them is that they became successful in their field. Yeah, I think it is fascinating that Spinach becomes the kind of like the revelatory spirit murder confessor to someone, and that beautiful phrase "thought flowers." Um, it's so kind of
Yes.
dismissive. Thought flowers and white robes. It's such a contemporary feeling, kind of dismissal as well. It's like, oh, thought flowers, white robes, the afterlife. Oh, that's a really badly written sentence. Says no, Rachel, your written England was perfectly acceptable and understandable, so don't you worry about it. Um, The story of these characters, says Claire, thinks it would be great on stage and screen and would love to see their further misadventures. I would too. I think it feels like a stage play. I think a lot of these short stories do. I think the whole medium short story, they come across as episodes, don't they?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think Benson's stuff is very. A lot of Benson's spook stories do feel a bit like little stage plays, and yeah, they would work incredibly well as kind of your ghost story for Christmas kind of
And
things.
and so W. Jacobs, who wrote Monkey's Paw, he wrote and adapted some of his ghost stories to stage plays. Because those were
Yeah.
the entertainments, those were the outputs. The
Well, that was
magazines, the
yeah.
collections, the stage plays, and then subsequently, of course, a couple of decades later, radio plays, um, the big
That
popularity of portmanteau collection movies, in the 50s and 60s.
but that was you. That was as close as you got to getting a TV option. Then wasn't famously Stoker, because of his theatre background, immediately did the Dracula stage
Stage
play
play,
afterwards,
yeah.
even though his book is completely doesn't work as a. And I'll just write a completely different version of that. It's not even vaguely anything like a stage play, is it? It's an epistolary collection of letters.
Yeah, I know you're a fan of Dracula. We've had
I
this
know you don't like
conversation.
Dracula. I
It's not
like
that
a
I
lot of
don't.
things about Dracula.
It's not that I don't like Dracula, and I know that you are an expert on Dracula. It's just that I find Dracula is the only character I actually like, and the rest of them, I want them all dead. Not
Yeah,
undead forever dead. I just want them dead, and I want Dracula to keep going. That's a side issue. I would also say, says Rachel, it's the most accessible in relation to tidy language that John mentioned. Yeah, I do think it's very accessible. I do. I do like the fact that his stuff is very readable. Now, Claire says, "I love Dracula." I don't know what that. Who's Dracula? I think Claire's talking about Dracula. I love
Dracula.
Dracula,
Yeah,
and apparently dedicated to a man from Runcorn. Is he? Is it?
I didn't know that. There you
I
go.
didn't know that. Who is Dracula? I can't say it and spell it.
Mm-mm.
Dedicated to. Okay. So again, thoughts, questions, clarifications. Why did you enjoy it? Um, Bram Stoker's Dracula is officially dedicated to his close friend and confidant, Hall Caine,
Hall
a,
Caine. I didn't know Hall
a
Caine was from
popular
Runcorn.
19th century novelist. So I'm going to click on Hall Caine, And I'm going to click on his Wikipedia, and it says he's from Thomas Henry Hall Caine from Runcorn in Cheshire. And if there's one
Well,
thing
there you go.
Claire needs to crowbar into every conversation, it's Runcorn.
I'm trying to formulate some sort of joke about Dracula not being able to cross running water and the
Yeah, he's
Runcorn
never been to
Bridge Tunnel,
Widnes.
but I can't come up with it.
Yeah,
You get the
Dracula's
idea.
never been to Widnes or Warrington. So there we are, a direct link between Dracula and Runcorn. Up the corn. Although Claire says they're from Widnes. Oh, and thank you, Barry. It's got a Liverpool Echo link there to Runcorn Honoured. Brilliant. I love E.F. Benson. So you know the Mark Gatiss Christmas ghost stories. He did a Benson story last year, didn't
Yes, yeah,
he? Which I really liked it. I didn't necessarily I didn't enjoy the framing, but I understand why it was there. The Room in the Tower is
yeah.
such a good story. It's such a good story. The Horror Horn. We all get that. That's why we're all part of this club, isn't it? We've all got the horror horn. Um, Now the one you mentioned, which I have read as well, caterpillars. That's very what's his face? Lovecraftian, isn't it?
Yeah, well, and I think all three of the ones I mentioned, so Negotium, Perambulans, and No Bird Sings. There's a so through people say that you should be careful what you write because you're revealing too much of yourself. And there's a funny thing with the kind of the ghost story writers, the horror writers, that they reveal their fears. M.R. James very scared of spiders, constantly going on about spiders and spidery things. E.F. Benson, he doesn't like creepy crawlies, he doesn't like slugs, and he doesn't like caterpillars. Any wiggly things, he's not a fan of them.
Which
So, well,
ironic as a very actively gay man.
ah
Sorry.
dear. But yes, there are a lot of monster slugs
There
and
are a lot of
monster
monster slugs.
caterpillars.
Yeah, the caterpillars one, I can recommend it if you like it, all a bit grim. Now, I also, has anybody here read any of the Map and Lucia books? I love them because I'm a bit obsessed with rye and camber. That's also why I love this story because I could visualize it. I know that part of the world really well. About 5 miles, 5 or 6 miles out of Rye, when I was a kid, we had a caravan, not like a posh caravan on a place with like a shop and a bar. This was a caravan on the edge of a field that, for entertainment, had a toilet block and two oak trees and a woods, and you could go scrumping. So I know Rye really well. In the 80s, the big Map and Lucia series, Prunella Scales, plus, and then it was remade in the teens. Just did all that filming around Rye. And if has anybody ever been to Camber? Of course, there's the famous Camber Sands. There's the Pontins and all that. But the actual salt marsh around, just between Rye and Camber, is very, very mysterious. We made our own fun in them days, says Barry. And Rye itself is so full of history. It was an island. It's got these gates. It's got the cobblestones. If you get a chance to go down there, it's got the smugglers' stories. It's got the full big towers, and Henry VIII had a castle just outside Rye. Spike Milligan used to live near there. Oh, I love that part of the world, but it's got great atmosphere as well. It's very spooky. Couldn't get into the TV series at the time, but I think I might try the audiobooks. I can really recommend them. They are, and the Mark Gatiss update version was very, very good as well. But it doesn't go to that part of the world if you can. Go and visit Dungeness, one of the weirdest places in this country. I think it's officially classed as a desert. But yeah, it is a spooky place if you want to get rid of bodies. And that's why I don't think he buried it, because it's a marshland and those things will come to the surface. Those things will come
Ah.
to the surface as well. All right, so let's do what we normally do, which is give it a bit of a categorizing and and what we thought. So, any final last few minutes of thoughts and comments and feedbacks and questions? Yeah, I honestly, if you can get hold of an E.F. Benson collection of ghost stories, it's worth your time, and a lot of them are
Yeah,
really
definitely.
very, very short as well, so that's good. Okay, so we need to categorize it, okay? And John, you'll go last. What type of classification of a ghost story? And roughly we say, is it a classic ghost story? Is it a haunted house or place? Is it a physical creature or a monster? Is it a cursed or a haunted object? Is it weird fiction? Is it demonic or otherworldly? Is it a psychic spiritualist, something that only the sensitive are aware of? Or is it not necessarily paranormal? What kind of category do you think it is? A classic ghost story? It could be more than one, maybe. It's my thinking. A haunted house or place? A physical creature or a monster? Is it cursed object? Is it weird fiction? Is it demonic or otherworldly? Is it of the psychic and spiritualist world? Or is it not necessarily paranormal? What do you think? And as you're typing that, and I don't know if you're still here, but there was a member of this club who was here earlier who didn't enjoy it, and I'd genuinely like to know why. Be interested in that. John, what do you think it is?
I think it's our first psychic slash spiritualist story that
Okay.
we've done. I
Okay.
think that, yeah, I don't think anybody else would have been aware of it, although we don't know whether the knocks might have happened,
Yeah.
but there's no indication that anybody else had seen or sensed anything necessarily. So I think we have to go with psychic spiritualist, I think.
Okay. I think it is that, but I also do think it's a classic ghost story as well.
Yeah.
I know the two cross over because you can have psychic spiritual stories or not. Um, haunted house ghost story. Yeah, I think those two go together. I think it's a mixture of the two because you can have a classic weird fiction or a supernatural story about psychics and they're not psychic at all as well. But all right, because when we're thinking maybe at some point in the future this could end up being a top trumps. Um, um, so how scary was it for you out of 5? How scary was it for you? Did you get the creeps? Did you get the this comes later. Did you get the fear factor? So out of 5, how scary was it? And how creepy was it? Did it give you the? And can I read Benson's introduction as well in a minute? So it's how scary was it? How creepy was it? What was it? Because sometimes things don't have to be scary, but they make you think. Ooh. And also, how satisfied were you out of it? Out of each of those out of 5, did it stick with you? Did you think about it? Did you go back and have another look? Did you tell something about it? Did you finish it and go, hmm? I like that. And why? So, how scary was it? How creepy was it? And how satisfied were you? So, in the Wordsworth edition, this is his introduction, and I love it because this is exactly everything I'm looking for. These stories have been written in the hopes of giving some pleasant qualms to their reader, so that if by chance anyone may be occupying in their perusal a leisure half hour before he goes to bed, when the night and the house are still, he or she perhaps cast an occasional glance into the corners and dark places of the room where they sit, to make sure that nothing unusual lurks in the shadow. For this is the avowed object of ghost stories, and such tales as deal with the dim, unseen forces, which occasionally, and perturbingly, make themselves manifest. The author therefore fervently wishes his readers a few uncomfortable moments. I love that. It's so arch. It's so arch. I love it. Right. So 1 out of 5 for scary. Not scary, says Barry. So 2s and 3s and 1s out of 5. 2 out of 5 are creepy, mainly because of the swimming body on the other side. It's 3 for creepy there, 3.5. So you're getting the creepy, but it's 4s for satisfaction. So there's a high satisfaction level for this one. Saving the 5 for one that hits the creepy scary combo. Oh, that'll be a beautiful day. And Nathan, hello Nathan. Scary 1, creepy 2, satisfaction 4. I love that. because it doesn't have to be creepy or scary to be satisfying. It's like to use a contemporary reference, it is an Inside Number 9, isn't it? Some of them are funny, some of them are scary,
Yeah.
but when they finish and they're like, I like that. That's a good thing.
Well,
Chris is here.
hello, Chris. I recently read a wonderful little pamphlet which is called Thoughts on Horror by a friend of mine, Brian J. Showers, who lives over in Dublin. He's the guy in charge of Swan River Press over there, produces some amazing books. And read this little pamphlet when I was on the train the other day, which I think is the best time to read anything on the train. And this Brian's a lifelong horror fan, the same as us. But this whole thing that people say they're unsatisfied with horror because it didn't scare them. And so Brian's basically written this whole treatise on why being scared is only one tiny part of the wide sort of smorgasbord of what horror and ghost story does for you. And there are all these little boxes that stories can tick, and they can pull you in all these different directions. And ultimately, it's about how satisfying they are. And I actually spoke to Brian and said, it's so funny because what we're doing with the Haunted Book Club at the moment is really showing that although we're giving these scores and it can seem a bit reductive in some ways, what's really interesting about it is you could have a really scary story that wouldn't be satisfying. You can have a story that isn't very scary or creepy but can be really satisfying, and it's all these different ingredients that make these stories so interesting and make kind of horror and the ghost story just such a broad church. And I think sometimes there's a lot of harm done by trying to say what sort of, especially with films, it happens more with films. What sort of horror is it? Is it a this or is it a that? And at the end of the day, it's just like, have you enjoyed it? Has it stayed with you? That's the most important thing, isn't it?
Most definitely, and I love this story. Thank you. Chris is late. Says sorry for the late. Forgot about the day change. On holiday, had been trying to get the fire going. Must be a blockage. Okay, so we're going to start to draw this to a close. What happens is we'll do some final things, thoughts, comments. You can start typing them in now, and then we stop the recording, but we do stay here on Substack Live for a short, if people want to stay, for the afterlife. And Claire doesn't actually like horror. I don't actually like horror too much, because certainly as I got older, because it does scare me, and the visceral, nasty, bitey, fleshy, descriptive stuff. But I used to love them all when I was younger. So as we come to an end, we've got a few things we would like to tell you about. John and I have had a conversation. It was a very long, very heated conversation, because according to our list, we've got one more Substack live to come, which is Man-Sized in Marble, which is 2 weeks tomorrow. It's another. We're going back to the Tuesday. Edith Nesbit, who, I'm going to say it, I have the horror horn for. I have a passionate crush on Edith Nesbit, as a writer. I'm not being reductive here. And we've decided we want to carry on. So we're going to carry on doing at least another 5 or 6 of these this side of summer, at least. Okay. So we are going to carry on with these, and we hope you stick around, and we hope you tell people about it, and we hope you invite it. We've got the live gigs coming up, and if you're online, we're going to start. So we're actually going to the Draclia dedicated Runcorn to Norton Priory with our first live, which will be on Saturday the 18th, only a couple of weeks away, of April, and we'll be doing the story which is actually set there. The curfew, and then we'll at the 14th of May we'll be at the Portico in Library in Manchester. 2 incredible spaces, and the 22nd of May we'll be at the Blooming Skull coffee shop in Bebington. You can jump on a train and come and join us. So we've got those live gigs coming up to support if we'd like to. Now, Date is going to be confirmed, and it's coming to you, the dedicated live bookers first. We're going to do a free live gig, aren't we, John?
We are indeed, yes.
And it's going to be very small, and it's going to be on a Tuesday night, and we're going to try and stream it live as well. But it's going to be in the cholera-ridden Wavertree lockup. We're going to do a small, so we're only going to have to fit about 10 people. And we're going to like to invite anybody who's in the Northwest who'd like to join us. Bring a friend maybe for a live haunted book club in this style, because we're going to try and go live at the same time online in the Wavertree drunk cholera victim lockup. And that'll be a free gig aimed at book clubbers first.
Members only.
Nathan says, I hope you carry on with this. I'm really enjoying it, so I'm happy you've already looking to do another 6. Absolutely. Free to get in, £20 to get out, says Barry. Why not come to Slains Castle in Aberdeenshire if you're interested in Dracula? I am interested in Dracula. Well, if they want to pay us... we don't intend to ever charge for the online things, but obviously we do have to charge for tickets for the live gigs. But we want to build those up. We actually want to do real live ones. Now, the other thing is, tomorrow when I push this out on Substack and also on the socials, I'm going to put a Google form on for you to nominate short stories. What's the criteria for the stories we're looking for, John?
They need to be out of copyright, so we can all share them. They need to be freely available, so we can look them up online or pick them up in paperback form. And they need to be under a certain amount of words, which I should know, but I don't know. We want them to only be like, half an hour long,
Half an hour
nothing
to
longer
40
than
minutes
that.
to read out loud.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a Google form for you to nominate stories that we could look at, and I'd like to mix, and I'm sure it's saying mix up, because it'd be great to do all one author, because they wrote loads, and I'd love to get into some of the ones we've done authors before, but different authors, mix of gender and approaches, really, multicultural ghost stories that are out of print as well, or interested in finding out about. Things that could be accessible. Can it be banshees and boggarts? Yeah. Of course, you can suggest anything as long as it's a short story that is out of print, really. So it's got to be more than 70 years old. Or even one of yours. If you know someone who's written a story, or you've written a ghost story and you want it to be featured, I'd love that. Wouldn't that be good, John?
Yeah, that's a really good idea.
Can
Really
we
good
do a
idea.
Reppion story sometime?
What, and I'll sit here and say what he's done is particularly clever.
If you go online to YouTube, you can find a Gav Cross reading of a John Reppion story.
Oh, you can, yeah.
Owl pellets, yes. Maybe we should share
Yeah.
that as a bonus.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a great story. It's a bloody great story. Okay, so what we're going to start to bring this to a close. Thank you very much for being here. John, what are you up to for the rest of the week?
Working hard or hardly working, that's the question. I'll be working on my novel, which is what I'm doing at the moment, which is a really boring thing for a writer to say, isn't it? But that's what I'm doing. And it's got a lot of real world nasty stuff in it that I'm turning into fiction, but it means that I end up just like looking at loads of miserable news items.
What, you're turning some of the real world nasty things you've done into fiction?
Not that I've done. They're nothing to do with me.
All right.
No.
Okay. Sorry.
I wouldn't have to look them up if they were things I'd done. Actually, that's a lie. I always have to Google myself if I have to remind myself of anything I've ever done. So
keep an eye out for my other live shows. I'm just about to start pushing my Cheshire mini tour of the War of the Worlds.
yes, definitely.
I'm down to Basingstoke next week to develop a new family kids game show, Funny Looking Kids, the game show. And that's what I'll be doing soon. All right, everybody. So we're going to finish here. Thank you very much. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your likes, your subscribes. If you're listening to this back, please leave a comment. We'll always reply, and we can find us everywhere anyway. Right, so thank you very much, and stick around for the afterlife if you wish. If not, Goodbye. Take care. And look, like E.F. Benson says, there's always a dark little corner. Look over your shoulder, see what's in there. It might be stew and dumplings. Who knows?